Brunhilda was born into a castle of polished marble and perfect expectations, where every hallway echoed with rules about how a princess should behave, think, speak, and even dream. But she always felt like her true self existed somewhere far beyond the walls that guarded her like a cage lined with velvet. Instead of admiring silk gowns and golden tiaras, she admired the rugged mountains in the distance, the kind that caught fire with sunlight at dawn, and she longed to climb their jagged backs, just to prove she existed outside the script already written for her. She was told bravery was loud speeches and fancy armor, yet she discovered bravery in quiet things, like holding her own thoughts when everyone tried to replace them with theirs, or swallowing her anger when people mistook her silence for ignorance. She practiced with wooden swords behind the stables where no one could see her, sweating like a soldier instead of glowing delicately like a princess. And every swing of the sword felt like chipping away a layer of who the kingdom expected her to be. One winter evening, a messenger charged into the courtyard, trembling and pale, claiming that something monstrous had awakened in the silent forest, a place of superstition and rumors where even hunters refused to set foot. The king summoned every knight in the kingdom, rewarding speeches of courage with applause. Yet when asked to ride into the forest, every knight suddenly discovered excuses that sounded like fear disguised as wisdom. And Brunhilda saw the truth. People love the idea of bravery, just not the responsibility of it. That night, Brunhilda stood in her chamber staring at her reflection, realizing that if she didn't choose her own fate now, she would be trapped inside someone else's version of her life forever. And that terrified her more than any unknown danger. With shaking hands yet an unshakable heart, she peeled off her royal gown and pulled on riding clothes that smelled of leather and dust and freedom. And she stole a sword, not to prove she could fight, but to prove she could choose. She rode into the night without permission, without a plan, without a crown, letting the cold wind slap the lies off her skin until she felt like a real person instead of a polished symbol. And every hoofbeat felt like the beginning of becoming herself. When she reached the edge of the silent forest, it felt like crossing an invisible border, because the air grew still and heavy, as if even nature was holding its breath, waiting to see who she would become. Inside the forest, trees curved overhead, like ribs of some ancient sleeping creature, and shadows shifted not with wind, but intention, whispering doubts into her ears, doubts that sounded eerily like the voices of people who told her she was too delicate to survive without them. She almost turned back until she realized that fear doesn't always shout. Sometimes fear wears the voice of someone who claims to love you. Hours passed before she stumbled into a clearing where moonlight spilled over the ground like frozen silver, and in the center lay the creature everyone feared, its enormous body trembling, leg pinned under a fallen tree. But instead of a monster, she found a massive silver wolf, ribs heaving in pain, eyes wild not with hatred but with agony. And Brunhilda's heart cracked open in a way she had never felt inside the castle's safety. She approached slowly, whispering not commands but reassurance. And though the wolf growled, she refused to retreat, because she finally understood that courage doesn't mean the absence of fear. It means choosing truth even while shaking. She pushed against the fallen tree until her muscles screamed and her hands bled, yet she didn't stop, because for the first time she was fighting for something that mattered to her, not to her reputation. With a final heave, the tree shifted and the wolf pulled free, collapsing into the snow, trembling from exhaustion. And Brunhilda reached out a gentle hand, letting him choose whether to bite or trust. Instead of attacking, the wolf pressed his forehead against her palm, and something ancient and wordless passed between them, a vow born without language. Together, they walked back toward the kingdom at dawn, the sky pink and gold like a promise. And when castle guards saw them, they panicked, drawing swords as if fear could protect them from a truth they weren't ready to see. Brunhilda didn't raise her weapon or shout commands. She simply placed her hand on the wolf's neck and walked through the gates like someone who finally understood her own worth. The king demanded an explanation, angry that she risked her life, angry that she disobeyed, angry because he feared losing her. And Brunhilda realized that people often try to control what they fear they cannot protect. With a calmness that made her voice more powerful than shouting ever could, she told him that she did not survive despite her choices. She survived because of them. She said fear had ruled the kingdom long enough, and that fear breeds false monsters, but courage reveals the truth hiding beneath them. She told him that a life kept safe by walls is not a life. It is a slow death disguised as comfort. The wolf stood beside her like a living symbol of everything she had become. Wild, loyal, impossible to cage. And for the first time, the king didn't see a disobedient daughter. He saw a leader. Years later, when bards told her story, they never sang about her beauty or her gowns or how gracefully she curtsied in court. They sang of the night a princess faced the unknown, freed a creature everyone feared, and became more than royalty. She became sovereign over her own destiny. Brunhilda didn't become legendary because she was fearless. She became legendary because she finally chose herself. And whenever the moon rises full over the mountains, people swear they still hear a wolf's howl carried by the wind, not as a warning, but as a reminder. Your life doesn't begin the moment you become brave. Your life begins the moment you stop letting fear make your decisions for you.